Human beings tend to think of animals as uniform and standard in nature. But if dogs prove anything, it's that an incredible amount of genetic diversity can be found in just one species. In turn, breeding has given people a sense of control that isn't really present in the chaotic world of evolution. Some variations are commonplace. Freckles, for instance, or different eye color. But sometimes these variations are rare, like insanely rare. Check this out. Take, for instance, the King Cheetah, whose unique appearance and fur pattern is caused by a genetic mutation. First reported to the Western world in 1927, but long talked about by the natives, the King Cheetah was first thought to be a unique crossbreed. It was even put forward as its own species, but was forced to withdraw because the proposer of the idea, Reginald Innes Pocock, couldn't prove the darn thing even existed. In fact, the King Cheetah was only spotted, pun intended, 5 more times before the 80s. And the only reason this changed was that 2 cheetahs with this unique genetic variation were born in captivity. Before then, this animal was so rare it was basically a unicorn of the savannah. Actually, that title probably better suits the golden zebra. Like the name insinuates, golden zebras have golden stripes rather than black ones. While a few have been spotted in the wild, they tend to be more common in captivity, if only because the compromise of their primary camouflage makes it harder for them not to be eaten. This genetic anomaly can also cause issues with eyesight, which is likely to lower chances of survival. Additionally, while there are roughly 24 golden zebras in captivity now, that's a record high. For a few hundred years beforehand, there were less than 3 of these creatures in captivity at one time. So even with 24 of these zebras in zoos and parks around the world, the chances of seeing one is still pretty unlikely. Now, the King Cheetah's genetic variation is actually similar to what we see in domestic cat fur variation, and the golden zebra's unique stripes are a result of a rare but known condition called amyelinosis, and it can occur in other animals. But don't think that color and pattern mutations are specially reserved for mammals. There are plenty of examples elsewhere. Consider the lobster. I was going to write about blue lobsters, but then the internet told me there were rarer yellow lobsters, and I was like, whoa, cool, yellow lobster. Plus, the yellow lobster was named Banana, and I'm all for talking about a lobster named Banana. But then the internet is like, wait, idiot, check out this see-through lobster. And the see-through lobster is the coolest, but I think the internet could have been nicer about it. Anyway, check out this crystal clear lobster. A rare condition that results in a partial loss of pigment makes these extremely rare lobsters appear translucent or iridescent. The chances of catching one of these lobsters amount to about 1 in 100 million. The amazing thing is the guy who caught one most recently threw it back. Don't get me wrong, it was the right thing to do. I just can't imagine what it's like to throw the rarest thing you'll ever catch back. Another lucky fisherman was able to catch a crystal lobster who was a variation on the already rare mutation, giving it a pearlescent cotton candy type of appearance. Lucky for the lobster, who was named Lucky funnily enough, the fisherman decided to donate them to a local research center. Lobsters with these birth traits tend to stand out to predators more, so Lucky is more likely to live a long and happy life in captivity. What makes seeing ocean animal generic variation so interesting is just how rare it is to spot in the wild. Take, for instance, this pink manta who lives in Australia's Great Barrier Reef. Named Inspector Clouseau after the Pink Panther character, because all the rare ocean animals get names, I guess, only a handful of people have seen this beautiful and rare manta in the wild. While scientists have done a skin biopsy to determine the cause, they were only able to eliminate disease or diet. So they theorized that it had to be a genetic variation that causes the manta's pigment to present differently and gave it the lovely blush we see now. It's amazing to me that despite its eye-catching coloration and living in one of the most popular diving spots in the world, this big pink creature still manages to remain mostly unseen except for less than a dozen people. What's his trick? It's gotta be wild. Maybe someday we'll discover a secret pink manta kingdom. Actually, that sounds like a good idea for a kid's book. Someone should talk to that manta's lawyer. So in the few minutes you've been watching this video, we've already gotten a ton of feedback telling us that you all love rare pink animals. Well, believe it or not, I have a second extremely rare pink animal, the pink fairy armadillo. Not only is the pink fairy armadillo pink, it also is very tiny, never larger than 5 inches and weighing around 4 ounces. It's the smallest species of armadillo and rarely spotted in the wild. It's so rarely spotted that they don't have a conservation status because we can't really say how rare they are. This might be because these little pink critters burrow and live underground, which is not where humans tend to spend a lot of time. Studying them is also proved to be incredibly difficult since they tend to die a few days after being taken into captivity. So relish the chance to see one if you ever do, because they won't be making their way to your local zoo anytime soon. Now I know what you're thinking so far. Birds are already super diverse and colorful, but that's just how they are. Sure, they probably have genetic mutations and all that, but probably nothing like what we've already seen, right? Of course, you're wrong. I just inserted the wrong answer into your mouth avatar of the audience. Now be quiet and let me educate you. Forms of melanistic mutation are rare in birds, and even when they are present, it's not as overt because of the way feathers pattern and color. But recently, National Geographic was able to get footage that is incredibly rare because they found one of the most unlikely occurrences, an all-black emperor penguin. Interestingly enough, whatever genetic variation caused the change in coloration also made this fella way bigger than his other emperor penguins. Thankfully, none of this seems to affect our buddies' socializing, which gives me peace of mind. Penguin social circles can be really cutthroat, and this fella is a lot different from his flock mates. This type of color mutation has been spotted only a few times in penguins, so we're lucky that the photographer spotted him from the boat and snapped a couple of pictures for us to marvel at. We're also really lucky to get to talk about this next example because it is incredibly rare. It does, however, require a little bit of background about the mutation in question. Unlike previous examples we've talked about, which involve the mutation of a singular genome, Chimerism is when a creature is born with 2 whole separate genomes that can be dominant in different parts of the creature's body. You may recognize the term chimera, which comes from Greek, originally referring to a monster made up of multiple animals. The example of chimerism we get to see today is one of our feathered friends again, a Chimeric Cardinal. Cardinals have sexual dimorphism in their species. The male cardinals are bright red, while the females tend to be a more muted reddish-brown. The rare picture we see is a rare chimera that's coloration is symmetrical down the middle, one side favoring male coloration and the other female. The picture was taken at a bird feeder in Pennsylvania when observers noted this bird had odd markings for its species. This particular cardinal, which was only spotted at a distance, so this cannot be verified, may have a mutation called bilateral gyndomorphia, which is the development of 1 ovary and 1 testicle in the bird. This is incredibly rare. The ornithologist who took the picture, likening it to capturing a picture of a long-extinct species, the dude said he was incredibly excited, his heart pounding in his chest, which I think is great. This is the exact guy I want to be working as an ornithologist. Someone who is super pumped about birds. I thought for our last example, we'd bring it a little closer to home. While genetics is random, I think people have a really interesting relationship with that randomness, since so many domestic animals and the like are domestically bred. So I thought I'd bring up a rare genetic coloration mutation in dogs. You may have heard of vitiligo in people, a condition that causes skin cells to lose pigment that occurs in between 0.5% and 1% of all people, making it a bit more common than you think. What you may not know is that it does occur in other species as well. Dogs, like these ones, will lose capability of producing color in their fur and end up developing the same sort of spots. Not the rarest condition ever, to be sure, but very interesting to see crop up in domestic pets whose breeding is strictly controlled. So what did everyone think? Did you enjoy the opportunity to see these unique and interesting examples of mutations in animals? Did I drop the ball and forget any biggies? Or do you have any stories about rare animals you've seen yourself? Don't forget to share your thoughts, opinions, and anecdotes in the comments below, and make sure to like and subscribe, just in case any exceptionally rare animals get spotted in the near future.